All right, let's dive in. Today we're going to take a good look at Wait Until Dark, the 1967 film starring Audrey Hepburn.
Okay.
You've provided us with some really cool sources to work with.
Yeah.
YouTube reviews, a synopsis, and even a blog post
Nice.
that compares the film to Hitchcock's work. I'm really curious to see what makes this film so compelling and if its reputation as like a top-tier thriller really holds up.
Yeah.
A blind protagonist, a doll filled with heroin, and a connection to Hitchcock.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting.
Oh, it really does sound like we've got all the ingredients for a classic thriller here. Let's start by unpacking the basic plot of the film, then we can sort of delve into some of the nuanced details.
So, according to the film synopsis and the Wikipedia source, Wait Until Dark centers around Susie Hendricks, a recently blinded woman who finds herself terrorized by criminals who are looking for a doll that was mistakenly left with her husband.
Right.
And the doll is actually stuffed with heroin.
Whoa.
Which immediately raises the stakes.
Yeah. And you've got to imagine, like, how terrifying that would be just for anyone.
Right.
To be home alone, in the dark, not knowing who to trust.
Right.
But for Susie, with her blindness, it creates a whole other layer of vulnerability.
One of the YouTube reviewers, the critic Keacher, was surprised to find Hepburn in what they called a horror film.
Oh.
I guess they weren't expecting that side of her.
Yeah, I can understand that. We often think of Audrey Hepburn as, the epitome of grace and elegance. But Wait Until Dark allowed her to tap into a different side of her acting range, I think.
Yeah.
Her performance as Susie even earned her an Oscar nomination.
Wow.
Which is a testament to her ability to portray, vulnerability and strength in equal measure.
This was actually her last film before taking a break from acting for almost a decade.
Oh, wow. Way to go out with a bang.
Yeah. Really. And speaking of powerful performances,
it
seems like Alan Arkin as the menacing villain wrote really kind of stole the show.
The fact that George C. Scott and Rod Steiger turned down the role because they found Rote too despicable, that speaks volumes about the kind of character Arkin created.
Right.
This wasn't just your typical movie bad guy. There was something genuinely unsettling about him.
Yeah. He's described in many of the sources as chillingly meticulous, wiping away his fingerprints, controlling every little detail, and his motives seem to go beyond simply retrieving the drugs.
Yes, the blog post kind of hints that he might derive pleasure from inflicting fear and pain,
Right.
I wonder if that's a simplistic interpretation. Could Rote be driven by something deeper?
Right.
Perhaps he's not just a villain, but a commentary on the nature of evil itself.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
We tend to label characters as, good or evil.
Right.
But maybe it's not always so black and white. There could be a whole psychological backstory that informs Rote's behavior.
And that's what makes a villain truly terrifying, isn't it? When their actions can't be easily explained away, when there's a darkness inside them that we can't fully comprehend.
You can't talk about Wait Until Dark without mentioning the Hitchcock connection. And that blog post you provided really delves into this.
Yeah.
What stood out to you in that analysis?
Well, the comparison to Hitchcock's classic suspense techniques, the use of a MacGuffin, a woman in danger, and a confined setting. That's spot on.
Right.
The confined setting of Sungia's apartment is a character in itself.
Right.
Heightening the tension and creating that sense of claustrophobia.
The blog even draws visual comparisons to Rope and Rear Window.
Yes.
Both films that rely heavily on suspense built through framing and limited spaces.
It's almost as if Wait Until Dark is like a love letter to Hitchcock style, but with its own unique twist.
Especially given that Hepburn was supposed to star in No Bail for the Judge.
Oh, really?
Which was going to be directed by Hitchcock.
Wow.
It's fascinating to think what that collaboration would have looked like.
Imagine the psychological depth and visual mastery that Hitchcock could have brought to a story like this. But even without him at the helm, Wait Until Dark manages to create a truly chilling and unforgettable experience.
Both the Mr. Superphil and filmsdefrance.com reviews you gave us describe the films like slow burn suspense, the tension building scene by scene until it culminates in a terrifying climax. Mr. Superphil called it a legendary jump scare.
Okay.
You buy into that?
Jump scares can be effective, But what I find more intriguing is the way Wait Until Dark uses darkness as a motif throughout the film.
Okay.
Remember the detail in the filmsdefrance.com review about how some theaters would actually turn off all their lights during the final scene? You're plunged into darkness. Your other senses heightened, just like Susie.
Right.
You're forced to experience the world through her perspective.
Right.
Exactly. It becomes a truly immersive experience, making the fear that much more palpable. And it's not just about the fear, is it? The darkness also becomes a source of empowerment for Susie.
That's such an interesting paradox.
Right.
How can darkness be both threatening and empowering at the same time?
Well, think about it. For the criminals, the darkness represents the unknown.
Right.
The possibility of being caught, of their plans unraveling. But for Susie, it's familiar territory.
Right.
She's learned to navigate her world without sight.
Right.
And in a way that gives her an advantage.
Like in that scene where she smashes all the light bulbs?
Yes.
Except for the safe light.
Right.
Using her knowledge of the darkroom to create a space
exactly
where she can anticipate the criminal's movement.
It's a brilliant subversion of expectations.
Right.
Blindness, which is often seen as a weakness,
Right.
becomes her greatest weapon. And she doesn't just react to the situation.
Right.
She actively uses her environment and her understanding of darkness to turn the tables on her attackers.
That reminds me of something you said earlier about Roth's motivations.
Yeah.
He underestimates Susie,
Yeah.
assuming her blindness makes her an easy target.
Right.
But he fails to see the strength and resilience that come from her adaptation to a world without sight.
Absolutely. And that's a theme that resonates far beyond the confines of this film.
Right.
How often do we make assumptions about people based on what we perceive as limitations?
Right.
How often do we fail to see the unique strengths that arise from those perceived limitations?
Wait Until Dark challenges us to question those assumptions.
Yeah.
To look beyond the surface and recognize the power that can exist in unexpected places.
The film does a masterful job of showcasing that human capacity for resilience, for finding strength in the face of adversity. It's not just about Susie's physical survival,
right,
but her psychological and emotional strength as well.
And it's interesting to consider how the film, with its intense suspense and moments of genuine terror, was directed by Terrence Young,
right,
who is known primarily for his James Bond films.
Right.
A bit of a departure, wouldn't you say?
It is, and yet the filmsdefrance.com review suggests that Wait Until Dark might be Young's best work.
Wow.
Outside of the Bond franchise. It seems he had a talent for creating tension and excitement, regardless of the genre.
The Rotten Tomatoes score for Wait Until Dark is incredibly high.
Yeah.
And it's ranked number 55 on the American Film Institute's list of the 100 most thrilling American films.
Wow.
So it's definitely stood the test of time.
It's a testament to the film's enduring appeal. It's not just a thriller. It's a film that gets under your skin, that stays with you long after you've seen it.
Right.
And I think that's partly due to the way it taps into our primal fears.
The fear of the unknown.
Yes.
The fear of being trapped. The fear of what lurks in the shadows. These are fears that are deeply ingrained in us.
Yeah.
And Wait Until Dark brings those fears to life in a way that is both visceral and thought-provoking.
It makes you question your own perceptions.
Right.
How much of what we see is shaped by our own biases?
Right.
Our fears, our assumptions.
Especially when you consider the film's context.
Right.
Wait Until Dark was released in 1967.
Okay.
A time of social and political upheaval.
Right.
There was a sense of uncertainty in the air.
Yeah.
A feeling that the world was changing rapidly and not always for the better.
And that sense of unease, of distrust, permeates the film.
Right.
It's not just about a blind woman being terrorized. It's about the fragility of safety,
Yeah.
vulnerability we all feel when our sense of security is shattered.
It makes you think about how much we rely on our senses to navigate the world.
Right.
And what happens when those senses are compromised? How do we adapt? How do we rebuild our understanding of ourselves and our surroundings?
Susie's journey in Wait Until Dark is a powerful testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity. She's a character who refuses to be defined by her blindness.
Right.
She uses her intellect, her courage, and yes, even her disability to fight back against those who underestimate her.
That's a theme that resonates with so many classic thrillers, isn't it?
It is.
The seemingly ordinary individual, often a woman, who is thrust into extraordinary circumstances and forced to rely on their wits and resilience to survive.
Think of Hitchcock's heroines.
Right.
They're often underestimated, dismissed, even ridiculed.
Right.
but they find a way to turn their vulnerability into strength.
Right.
To outsmart their adversaries and ultimately to triumph over evil.
It's empowering to watch these characters take control of their destinies.
Yeah.
Even when the odds are stacked against them.
Right.
And Wait Until Dark does a masterful job of showcasing that journey.
And it's not just Susie's story that captivates us. The supporting characters also add depth and complexity to the film.
Right.
Richard Crenna and Jack Weston, who play the other criminals, aren't just one-dimensional villains. They have their own motivations, their own fears. They're caught up in a situation that spirals out of control.
Even the character of Gloria, the young girl who lives upstairs, plays an important role.
Yeah.
She represents innocence.
Right.
A reminder of the stakes involved in Susie's struggle.
And her presence highlights the moral complexities of the film.
Right.
Are the criminals truly evil? Or are they simply desperate men caught in a web of their own making? Is there a possibility of redemption for them?
These are questions that Wait Until Dark leaves us to ponder.
Yes.
It's not a film that offers easy answers.
Right.
It challenges us to confront the darkness within ourselves and in the world around us.
And yet, despite the film's bleakness, there's a glimmer of hope that shines through.
Yeah.
It's in Susie's resilience, in her determination to survive, in her refusal to be a victim.
It's a testament to the power of the human spirit.
Yes.
The ability to find strength and meaning even in the most desperate of circumstances.
And it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found.
It strikes me that this film, with all its suspense and tension, ultimately comes down to a battle of perceptions.
Right.
Rote and his accomplices, they see what they want to see.
Yeah.
A vulnerable, blind woman who is easy to manipulate.
They misread the situation entirely. It's almost as if their own, limited perspectives, their preconceived notions, blind them to Susie's true strength and resourcefulness.
It's a classic case of underestimating your opponent.
Yeah.
Which, as we know, can have disastrous consequences.
Right.
But Wait Until Dark goes beyond just being a clever thriller.
Right.
It really gets under your skin and makes you think about the nature of fear, vulnerability, and the violation of personal space.
That scene where Rote breaks into Susie's apartment, even before the more overt threats begin, you can just feel the tension rising.
Right.
It speaks to that primal fear of home invasion.
Right.
The sanctity of our personal space being violated.
Right.
It's a nightmare scenario for anyone.
Yeah.
But for Susie, who is already grappling with the loss of her sight, it's amplified tenfold.
And the way the film uses darkness to heighten that sense of dread is masterful.
Right.
You mentioned earlier how some theaters would turn off their lights during that final confrontation.
Right.
I can only imagine how effective that would have been.
Oh, yeah.
In building suspense and putting the audience right there in Susie's shoes.
You're not just watching the film.
Right.
You're experiencing it.
Right.
You're plunged into that same darkness, forced to rely on your other senses, your imagination, to fill in the gaps.
Right.
It creates a truly visceral and unsettling experience.
The fact that the final showdown takes place entirely in the dark is such a bold choice.
It is.
But it works brilliantly.
Yeah.
It's a true battle of wits and wills, where sight becomes irrelevant and the characters are forced to rely on their instincts, their cunning, and their knowledge of the environment.
And it's a testament to Audrey Hepburn's performance that she's able to convey so much fear, determination, and even a touch of dark humor.
Right.
Using only her voice and her movements, we, the audience, are right there with her, holding our breath. Waiting to see what happens next.
She embodies that idea of finding strength in adversity, refusing to be a victim.
Yeah.
She's a fighter.
Yeah.
And even though we know the odds are stacked against her, we can't help but root for her to prevail.
It's that element of the unexpected, of Susie turning her perceived weakness into a weapon that makes Wait Until Dark so compelling. It's not just a thriller.
It's a story about survival.
Right.
About the indomitable human spirit that refuses to be broken.
We often think of thrillers as purely escapist entertainment.
Yeah.
But Wait Until Dark offers something more profound. It makes us confront our own fears, our own vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And one that transcends the boundaries of genre.
Right.
It speaks to the very core of what it means to be human.
Right.
Our capacity for resilience, our ability to adapt and overcome challenges, and our unwavering belief in the possibility of a brighter future.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
From the chilling performance of Alan Arkin as the Rote to the masterful use of darkness and suspense. It's clear that Wait Until Dark is more than just a classic thriller.
Absolutely.
It's film that challenges our perceptions, explores the depths of human nature, and ultimately leaves us with a sense of hope. It's a film that deserves to be seen, discussed, and debated.
Right.
It's a reminder of the power of storytelling. The enduring appeal of suspense, and the triumph of the human spirit.
Now, before we wrap up, I always like to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
Something to ponder as they delve into the world of Wait Until Dark.
All right.
What's your parting shot for today?
Well, we've talked a lot about Susie's physical blindness and how it plays into the film's themes. But what about the metaphorical blindness of the criminals? They're so focused on their goal, so convinced of their own cleverness, that they fail to see the true nature of the person they're dealing with. They're blind to her strength, her resilience, her cunning. I think that's an interesting layer to consider. As you watch the film, what other forms of blindness might be at play? How do our own biases and assumptions blind us to the reality of the world around us?
That's a fantastic point. It adds a whole new dimension to the film's exploration of perception and reality.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's those hidden layers, those unexpected connections that make a film truly memorable.
Well, we've certainly illuminated Wait Until Dark brilliantly today, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We have.
It's a film that will stay with you long after the credits roll.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe you'll discover something new.
Right.
Something that speaks to you on a personal level.
Yeah.
Something that you can carry with you long after the film has ended.
Until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those lights on.
Yes.
Just in case